Stocks on Wall Street end the trading session in the green. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq end near record high levels, led by gains in technology stocks and banking shares. The Dow surges over 400 points, and all eyes on the PCE inflation data due later today.
Markets in the Asia-Pacific region opened mixed as investors track Wall Street's gain after the White House downplays the tariff deadline. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a gap-up start for our own Indian market.
Crude oil prices inch higher as crude inventories in the US fall on higher demand, while concerns over West Asia supply risks ease, offsetting some of those gains. Gold prices hold steady as investors await the PCE inflation data later today.
The 12,500 crore rupee IPO of HDB Financial Services closes for subscription today, and the issue received 116% overall subscription as per exchange data from 5 p.m. last evening.
US President Donald Trump could extend the upcoming deadline for reimposing higher tariffs on imports from other countries. The White House press secretary says that the July deadline is not critical and could be extended. It's the most awaited day of the week. No prizes for guessing what day it is, but you're watching Power Breakfast this Friday morning on CNBC TV 18. I'm Hormas Patakia. With me is Vamakshi Dhoria. Vamakshi, good morning. A very, very strong end to the June series, and the bulls will be hoping that the July series turns out to be equally positive as well.
Well, absolutely, Hormas. You know, it just reminds me of this one meme, just baat badal diye, halat badal diye. At the beginning of the week, we started off with a lot of, negative news flow around the conflict in West Asia, and we're ending it on a very positive note. So let's see, and let's hope that the last session of the week also ends in the green. But what are the Asian markets doing, Hormas?
The Asian markets are doing fairly well for themselves. And after that very strong session that we saw on Wall Street overnight, and those gains are rubbing off on the Asian indices, not quite in Taiwan. The index is trading below the flat line, but the Hang Seng trading with gains of around 0.5%. The actual outperformance is coming from Japan, where the Nikkei is trading with gains of 1.5% and has crossed that 40,000 mark yet again. The Kospi seeing some bit of profit booking in today's session after the recent outperformance, 0.4% lower there as well. But the Hang Seng is trading with gains of 0.5%. The Shanghai Composite too trading with gains of around 0.25%. So a mixed picture emerging in the Asia Pacific. But pull up the GIFT Nifty, and after a very, very strong move, we get some issue in the graphic there. But the GIFT Nifty as of now was indicating a gap up start of well over 100 points for today's trading session. So the July series is more or less likely to start off on a positive note as well, Vamakshi.
And that is because the handover that is coming in from Wall Street was also quite positive in the US market. In fact, Wall Street ended higher. S&P 500 moved nearer to a record high, signaling strong rebound from its April lows. Dow was up 400 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq climbed 194 points. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were higher across the major indexes in Thursday trading as the S&P 500 hovered near a new all-time high. The Dow up 404 points, the S&P 500 gaining 49, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq climbed 194. The economy shrank more in the first 3 months of the year than initially thought, thanks to lukewarm consumer spending. The Commerce Department today lowered first quarter GDP, or economic growth, to a 0.5% drop. Earlier estimates had put the decline at 0.2%. The bulk of the decline came from the services sector. All 7 categories of services were revised lower. That includes recreation, travel, and transportation. And a huge shakeup at Tesla as Elon Musk fired longtime ally Omid Afshar. He was the vice president of manufacturing and operations at a time when the company has seen steep sales declines in key markets, including the U.S. and Europe. It follows another high-profile exit last month when the head of Tesla's humanoid robot project said that he was leaving to spend more time with family. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back to you in Mumbai.
Bertha, thank you for that update from Wall Street within touching distance of a record high. Let's also listen into some opinion from Mohammad Al Iran of Allianz on President Donald Trump considering a replacement for Fed Chair Jerome Powell and the economy.
The Fed officials cut their growth projection from 1.7 to 1.3 last week. That is a massive cut that in June. You talk about the current year, and they've now taken us down to 1.4. The closer we get to 1, the more people worry about stall speed. So we've got to be careful. This stuff is not linear. This stuff has cliff effects as you get closer and closer to 1, and certainly if you go below 1. I think the dollar is weakening because its role at the core of the system is eroding. The concern that I have and that others have, it's very difficult to convince anybody today that the Fed is not political. And that's because there are 3 different narratives going on. The first one, we talked about it, this notion of a shadow Fed chair. That is focused on President Trump. There's a second one focused on Chair Powell. That Chair Powell now is in love with the notion that his legacy will be protecting the Fed independence. That will replace any concerns about the inflation surge we had, any concerns about the slippage in bank supervision we had. That's a second narrative. Then there's a third narrative that looks at what has happened with Governor Waller and Governor Bowman and says that they wanting July to be live is a political view.
Well, that's all the global market action, but how will all of these overnight cues impact our own Indian market? We now have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news. First up, Vinny is joining in to get us a wrap of all the market cues that we need to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Vinny.
Hi, good morning, Vamakshi. So obviously an interesting day coming in today as well. Third consecutive day of gain we saw in the Nifty yesterday also. Nifty continued its up move, 25,500, more than 1% of uptick what we saw coming in for the Nifty yesterday. Now Nifty Bank also surged to all-time high levels intraday yesterday, and mid and small cap that too continued its rally for the 5th day. So clearly bulls were in charge this week, and that is what we are expecting to see in today's trading session as well. What is aiding all this, or what's leading to the uptick in the rally, is obviously geopolitical tensions easing in the West Asia is something that's a positive, and because of that positive sentiments and cues coming in even for crude oil. Crude oil has remained around the $65 per barrel mark. Weakening dollar, that's also a factor that's playing out for the Indian markets. Now FIIs in yesterday's trading session, obviously given those so many block deals that were there, we're seeing FII number coming in at 12,594 crore buying from FII, while DIIs were sellers of 195 crore rupees. Factors that we're watching out for today. Now this morning we had some commentary that came in from the White House saying that the deadline is not critical, and they could look to extend that as well, the 9th July tariff deadline. So that's not a worry, and obviously more details came in saying that they could sign a pact with India. That would be great as well. Nifty implied open is indicating a positive start right now, more than 100 points uptick that we're seeing there.
And the bulls will hope to build on to that. Vinny, thanks a lot for that update. Over to Upasana now. List out the stocks you need to keep an eye out for today. Upasana, good morning.
Good morning. First up, let me start with Hitachi Energy. The company bags order to supply 30 units of 765 kilowatt transformers from Power Grid. Next up is Tata Power. It applies to Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission for a license to distribute electricity to new areas across Mumbai metropolitan region as well as other parts of the Maharashtra state. Next up is NTPC. The company declares commercial operation of Unit 3 of 660 megawatt Par super thermal power project. Hence, this stock will also be on our radar today. Next up is Power Mech Projects. Company has received 159 crore worth order to build 13.6 megawatt solar power across Bihar, and it has received this order from Bihar State Power Generation Company for nearly about 25 years is what the company has indicated. And lastly, HCL Tech also in focus as it expands its partnership with Salesforce to accelerate enterprise adoption, agentic AI with new services. So all in all these stocks will be on our radar today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Upasana. And finally, we now have Hormaz to take us through the cues from the world of F&O. Good morning, Hormaz.
Well, it was a very strong session yesterday, there's no doubt about it, especially for the benchmark indices led by a lot of short covering seen in the banking index. The Nifty 300-point up move on the Nifty and finally breaking out of that range. The broader markets, though ending higher, recovering from the lows, but in comparison to the benchmarks were slightly subdued. And the start to the July series is no different. The GIFT Nifty for now is indicating a gap up, as Vinny was just highlighting a few minutes earlier. And if you look at the FII data yesterday, it was a very big number that comes in. Of course, you need to keep in mind that there were a lot of block deals that took place yesterday in PB Fintech, in delivery. Of course, that number was not significant, but yes, there is some buying that has come in from the FII front. There were buyers in index futures. They've added net longs. They've cut some short positions as well. So that is another positive that is coming in. We are heading into a new series with the long exposure at 38%, higher than June and at par with what we saw at the start of the May and the April series. So that is the FII positioning that's coming. Now you take a look at the options as well. The 25,500 call and the 25,600 call is where you're seeing additions of open interest. But on the put side, the 25,500 put and the 25,400 put has also seen significant writing, and that you can see the fact that they're trying to move the supports higher, whereas the index continues to move on the upside as well. Now, for the support levels, of course, that 25,300 to 25,000 mark remains that base. Now, the moving higher with 25,700 being the next resistance point. We're just 150 points away from that level. Of course, earnings in this season, we begin earnings in just a few days from now. The tariff updates, FII flows, we keep an eye out on all of this in the July series. So an important series that is lined up. We have not gained for 5 straight FNO series since 2017. So the bulls would look to overturn that update, Vamakshi.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hormas. But let's slip into a very short break. Up next, we'll get you all the latest developments on Trump. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. On to the latest Trump-related developments. Dia is joining in for our special segment, Trump Watch.
Tensions continue to simmer across West Asia as Washington and Tehran offer starkly different narratives following last weekend's U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth hit back at media reports questioning the impact of the strikes. Calling them historically successful, Hegseth claimed the attacks on 3 Iranian nuclear sites had severely damaged Tehran's nuclear program, even urging Americans to celebrate the operation. But in a direct rebuttal, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on Thursday dismissed those claims. In his first appearance since the ceasefire in the war with Israel took hold, Khamenei accused President Trump of exaggerating the scale of impact of the strikes, saying they did nothing significant to Iran's nuclear infrastructure. He said the American president exaggerated events in unusual ways. It turned out he needed this. Meanwhile, in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked Donald Trump for what he called his heartfelt support after Trump publicly called for Netanyahu's corruption trial to be cancelled. On another front, the administration also said President Trump is not close to naming a successor for Fed Chair Jerome Powell, despite speculation that a summer decision might be imminent. Officials clarified no decisions are imminent, although the president has a right to change his mind. Now, back in Washington, the White House signaled that a July deadline for higher tariffs on dozens of countries might be extended. The announcement could impact a wide range of global imports, but no final decision has been made. The U.S. and China have finalized a trade understanding. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said the White House has imminent plans to reach agreements with a set of 10 major trading partners, including a commitment from China to deliver rare earths used in everything from wind turbines to jet planes. And lastly, Pakistan says trade talks with the U.S. could wrap up as early as next week. Islamabad's finance ministry says both sides are satisfied with the progress and hope to conclude negotiations soon, with Pakistan offering to boost American imports, especially cotton. That's all for today. Now back to you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dia. But let's slip into a very short break now. Up next, we get you cues from the commodities market, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. What are you picking up today?
Well, it seems like a good morning because look at the dollar index, right? Because it's declined below 97. It's at the lowest since Feb 2022, and that definitely is supporting many of these commodities. While the crude oil prices for a second straight day are trading in the positive, no major moves here, no major price moves here, but we are looking at some stability coming back. What really seems to have moved overnight is the metal as a sector. You've seen silver prices gain up by 1%, platinum gained 5%. Copper prices, that should be on your radar because we've seen prices gain up by almost 3% on that. The dollar index declining, Iran-Israel ceasefire, and the fact that the markets are looking at strong demand coming in for metals, slightly better data that we've seen come in from China and US, and the fact that barring US Fed, we've seen various other central banks actually go ahead and cut interest rates. That includes Bank of Japan, China, England, ECB, even Swiss National Bank for that matter, and that in turn also seems to be supporting many of these economies.
Well, thank you so much for that, Manisha. So crude remains stable, but metals continue to gain. Now, as a part of continuing government action against online listing and sale of illegal walkie-talkies, the government sources tell CNBC TV 18 that Department of Consumer Affairs has written to several ministries in view of security concerns arising out of the sale. This comes after notices sent by the CCPA to Amazon, Flipkart and other platforms. Abhimanyu joins us with more details. Abhimanyu?
Walkie-talkies only of a certain specification and working on a certain frequency are permitted as per Indian norms, and any illegal sale of walkie-talkies which do not fit the bill has already been clamped down upon. Earlier, the CCPA, that is the Central Consumer Protection Authority, had issued 13 notices to several online platforms for listing and sale of these unauthorized walkie-talkies, and now the government is looking at a holistic way to curb such violations since this illegal listing and sale is still taking place. The Consumer Affairs Department has written to several ministries which include the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Department of Telecommunications and the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Now these respective ministries will be looking at their respective domains as far as the violations pertaining to the illegal sale of walkie-talkies is concerned. The matter pertains to a security threat. Hence, the MHA has been roped in. Apart from that, the frequency which is not allowed for walkie-talkies to operate upon, that issue would be looked at by the DOT, and the structural part of the equipment which is being illegally sold would be looked after by the MeitY. It remains to be seen how early action would be initiated by the respective line ministries to ensure that there is a complete clampdown on any illegal listing and sale of walkie-talkies.
Abhimanyu, thanks a lot for that. We take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast from Amakshimi and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching. Bazaar Morning Call sets you up for Friday's trade on the other side.